fuck am I watching right now? Hello and welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
All right, we got a heinous crime for you. We're back. Were we gone?
That's right.
We were there last week.
Yeah, we were gone for Patreon last week, and we decided not to tell anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't even say it on TCG Weekly. It just totally slipped my mind. That's my bad, guys.
That's just all the more reason to be a patron member, because sometimes we forget to even tell you that you're not a part of the action.
Yeah.
But if you're a patron member, you were a part of the action anyway. It didn't matter.
Yeah, we're so busy over there on Patreon. We just don't have time to tell people what we're doing, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Well, we're back with a devastating episode.
Yes, and a case suggestion from a great patron member, Jana B, up in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny because I was actually watching the Colorado Avalanche just before this recording. We're recording it on a different time, different day. Kind of rarity, recording on a Saturday night. And it's game 2 of the series, the NHL Finals. The Avalanche are facing off against the Lightning, who have won back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals. And the Avalanche haven't won a cup in over 20 years. So it's super exciting for them. They're up 1-0 in the series, and they're up 3-0 as of the end of the first quarter as we're beginning to record this. So
it's just not right that a team from Tampa Bay wins so much hockey.
Tampa, dude, it's Tampa Bay at this point, man. Tampa is just winning everything. Won a Super Bowl recently.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the Lightning won, and then didn't the Rays? Did the Tampa Bay Rays win?
I think they have one recently.
Yeah,
they have one in the last couple of years. Yeah, they're dominating down there in Tampa.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on. It's that Tampa Tom attitude. They think they're great now. They got Tom Brady.
Well, I'm rooting for the Avalanche in this one. The Lightning just got back-to-back. They've had their time, and the Avalanche are clearly the best team in the NHL this year. I think they were last year too, before the Knights took them out. But it's a lot of Colorado this week because our case is Colorado-centric. We're doing a guy who was the last person to probably ever be executed in Colorado, in that state, because it's since been abolished, and it was already very rare that they would. It was very rare that they would actually kill someone anyway on death row, as it was. So
yeah, it took forever to get this guy killed, and he deserved it.
Yeah, this guy.
Say that. I mean, I'm usually not an advocate for the death penalty, but this guy right here,
it was clear cut. I mean, he even admitted to doing it, as did his partner in crime there, his wife.
Mm-hmm.
One of those rare situations where a husband and wife torture and kill a woman.
It's like the American Fred and Rose West here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Almost.
Thankfully, they were stopped before they were able to be as successful as those two. But
that's what I was about to say. Thankfully, they weren't repeat offenders.
Yeah.
But
all right, let's dive into it.
Bad seeds, cut them open with a knife just to watch them bleed. There's fear on the table and it's time to feed. That monster inside is on his knees, just begging, waiting on that sweet release. They love it when you fight them, even say please. This is just a routine, acting out a daydream. Really wanna hear you scream, motherfucker, you's a bad seed. You ain't never gonna grow, you ain't never gonna change. You can put on a show, but you'll always be the same. You ain't never gonna grow, you ain't never gonna change. You can put on a show, but you'll always be the same. Always be the same. Now you got yourself a wife and you think it's better. It's sunny days for a while, then it's nasty weather. Two souls into one, but it's from hell. Come to earth to fuck it up like a motel. Beg for mercy and hit them with the oh well. But for real, your garden's so full of weeds, nothing came up, nothing came up, cause you a bad seed. You ain't never gonna grow, you ain't never gonna change. You can put on a show, but you'll always be the same. You ain't never gonna grow, you ain't never gonna change. You can put on a show, but you'll always be the same. Always be the same. You ain't never gonna grow, you ain't never gonna change. You can put on a show, but you'll always be the same. never gonna grow. You ain't never gonna change. You can do it on a show, but you'll always be the same. Always be the same.
All right, for case this week, we're going to Colorado. As we mentioned, their death penalty was abolished in 2020, very recently. But even before it was abolished, the state followed through on the death penalty very rarely, as we brought up, with the most recent execution taking place back in 1997. The final execution was for a particularly gruesome crime. That crime, of course, is our case this week. It was a brutal killing involving the kidnapping, rape, and torture and murder of a young mother whose only crime was basically being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Tragic.
Yes.
These horrific monsters moved in next door, in the farm next door, in a rural
I was about
area.
to say, it kind of sucks when the wrong place, wrong time is at your home.
Yeah. She just had some monsters move in next door. And this creep got his eye on her and basically plotted a plan with his another situation where two people that, unfortunately fate had them cross paths due to her responding to an ad in a newspaper of all places. And then these two evil bastards meet up and
kerosene to fire.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's start out by talking about the victim in this case, Jenny May, or Virginia May. She was born as the small town of Byers, Colorado, has a population barely over 1,000. It's a quiet little community of farms and ranches. It's a place where crime is virtually non-existent and where residents all know each other. Virginia Louise Mclennan was born on August 17th, 1952 in Denver, Colorado. She shares a birthday with Sean Penn, Robert De Niro, John Gruden, and Donnie Wahlberg.
Dang, a couple of gangsters.
Yeah, man. A couple of really good actors. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Sean Penn, De Niro, and then the other Wahlberg, and Coach Gruden.
Yeah.
Can't forget Coach Gruden.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I guess we can't forget him.
His legacy's been a bit...
yeah, never mind. Let's forget Coach Gruden. Let's don't worry about that.
I can't stand Sean Penn, though. He's so annoying. He's just like such the cliche annoying actor, dude. He's just like got to be involved in everything, bro. It's like takes this shit way too serious. Calm down.
Serious?
He's like always involved in conflicts. And it's like, dude, just stick to acting. Shut up. I don't know. That's just how I feel.
Niro, like Bono. He needs to just stick to music. Quit trying to save the world, bro. Just do your job, right?
Yeah. So Virginia, or as we'll come to know her, is Jenny. Her parents were Rod and Alice Mclennan. She was nicknamed Jenny by her friends and family, and that's what she would go by the rest of her life. She was a beloved figure and longtime resident of Byers, Colorado, that small town that we mentioned. And she had a reputation for always being there for someone when they were going through a hard time. She was that friend you could go to and have a sit down, and really she would get you feeling better by the time you left.
Right.
When she was 16, her younger brother Scott was horribly burned in an accident, and it was a tragedy that took its toll on the family. But despite her young age, she did her best to take on the role of caring for the three other siblings while her mother and father stood by Scott in the hospital. And her parents would later credit her for keeping the Mclennan family together through the most difficult times. So kind of the centerpiece of this family, it seemed like. She was the glue that held everything together.
Dude, underestimated is the role of the oldest sibling. I don't care what kind of family you come from. The role of the oldest sibling is always way more than just
the tone setter, right? Like if the oldest sibling's a shithead, it's just that much easier for everyone else to be fuck ups, It's like, what is your example? Of course.
But most of the time they're not, because they felt that responsibility. You know what I'm saying? And like oldest siblings, man, they are parents' best friends, honestly. Like they help so much. Yeah.
So after graduating from Fort Lewis College with an associate's degree in business, Jenny went on to work for a cattle company in Denver. There she met a guy named Gary May, who was a business associate working for a Denver consulting firm, and the two of them fell in love. They would get married in 1976, and they would buy a ranch about 25 miles north of Byers, and the newlyweds would start to settle down to start their new lives. And within 3 years, they would have a couple of children, and were incredibly happy together. They would have 2 kids together.
Yeah.
And live in a farm life. They had a pretty large farm, it sounded like.
Yep. But though her husband's name is Gary, not to be confused with the douchebag we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, so you got good Gary and bad Gary in this case.
Good Gary. There we go. Good Gary and bad Gary. This is good Gary we're talking about still.
Yeah, see, to me, it's hard to hear bad Gary because my dad's name's Gary and he's a great guy. So it's like, it's weird for me, but it is what it is. But at least there's a good Gary. There's a good Gary in this case to balance it out.
That's right. That's right. Things always find a way to level out.
Yeah. In the spring of 1986, the small town of Byers gained 2 new residents, a mysterious couple who moved from Wichita, Kansas, home of BTK. Mm-hmm. I can't think of Wichita without thinking of BTK. Unfortunately, he's just synonymous with that fucking town.
There's a few towns, there's a few places that have just been ruined because of
Milwaukee with Milwaukee with the cannibal.
With Dahmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although Milwaukee's like, I don't know. When I think of Milwaukee, I also think of like beer and cheese and like good stuff.
Yeah. I don't really think of
Wichita. I can't think of anything else other than BTK's stupid face. That's all I can think of.
Now I'm racking my brain trying to think of another city like that.
Kansas City's pretty. I mean, Kansas City's got a lot going on, but I think of Bob Berdella too when I think of Kansas City.
Yeah. Where's Ed Gein from? Wasn't he from like a super small town?
Well, yeah, it was another small town in Wisconsin. Yeah. I mean, if I heard the town, I would obviously think of him, but
yeah.
Wichita is big enough that everyone's heard of Wichita, you know, whereas that place that Ed Gein's from, was it Plain Farms or something like Plain something?
Plainfield.
Plainville, something like that.
Yeah, Plainville or Plainfield. I think it's Plainfield, Wisconsin. Yeah.
Ed Gein put that name to the test. Plain? You want to see plain? I'm going to put McLamps out of skin shade.
Anything but plain.
I'm going to live surrounded by human bones. It's not plain over here.
No. He spiced it up a bit, that's for sure.
Yeah, so the little town would welcome these 2 newcomers. They would be 42-year-old Gary Lee Davis and his wife, 34-year-old Becky Fincham. And you know, this small town of 1,000 people was, of Byers, Colorado. They wanted to welcome in new people. They wanted to get to know everybody. That's how all these small towns are. But these 2 were not all that into that sort of thing. They wanted to keep to themselves. And that's because they had some serious skeletons in their closet and some demons that they wanted to exercise in this small town.
They both did.
Yeah. So aside from showing up at church a few times and once at a ball game, the couple kept to themselves. And of course, the small town of Byers would gossip and speculate about this new couple that moved in, specifically Gary Davis. There were rumors that Gary had spent some time in prison in his home state of Kansas and that he had a lot of trouble with people, specifically women. And they weren't off on that, but not in their wildest dreams because they imagined how bad his past actually was. I mean, even their wildest speculation couldn't come close to touching how much of a monster this guy was.
No, absolutely not.
42-year-old Gary Lee Davis was, in the simplest terms, destined for evil. Let's get into his childhood. He was born in Wichita, Kansas, under the birth name of Gary Garer, to an alcoholic father and an abusive stepmother. He became estranged from his family at a young age and later claimed to have suffered sexual abuse at the hands of his older stepbrothers. So setting himself up for what he would become, I suppose.
Or trying to give himself an excuse for the way he turned out too. You know, because obviously all this information was after the arrest, I'm sure.
He dropped out of school in the 9th grade in 1961, he enlisted in the Marine Corps, a career choice that ultimately went nowhere. We've seen, God, it's such a common thread, right?
Right.
Abusive father, shitty stepmother, or something like that, like a shitty mother figure. Then you go into the military for a short amount of time and
sexual abuse.
Yeah, we're checking off some boxes here.
Seriously, he was put through the ringer, but at the same time, there's plenty of people that turned out fine. That's had probably worse childhoods.
Early in his life, Gary began displaying extreme violent behavior, most of it directed at women. During the 1960s and 1970s, it's estimated that he raped more than 15 women, many of them teenage girls, and took sadistic pleasure doing so. We'd come to find this out later from letters that he wrote to a confidant while in death row. So like, that's where we get some of this information about, what he had done, because obviously these aren't on his record. I think there's 1 or 2 rapes on his record prior to the murder, which we're going to get into, but 15, obviously he wouldn't be free to commit this murder had he been convicted of 15 rapes.
Right. That's just what he confessed.
You would hope so, at least.
I mean, even the ones that he got caught on, just straight up slaps on the wrist, though.
I think you violently rape more than like one person for me, but like if you get out and do it again, that's death, like either death sentence or
done.
like life sentence. You never see the light of day
Yeah.
again. Like you're clearly a repeat offender. You're never going to be corrected no matter what anyone does.
Right. At least the methods that we have in place here can't correct you.
Mm-hmm. Of his time in the 60s and 70s, raping, more than 15 women, according to him, he has a quote. He says, I'd just lay there with a smirk on my face, yelling at them and watching them cry and beg me not to hurt them. I had to touch. I needed some pussy by force. To hear a girl or woman scream and beg as I did, every person I raped, I enjoyed. If they didn't cry or beg, it would take the excitement out of it for me.
God,
spoken like a true monster there.
Yeah, that's too much insight right there. That's really all you need to know about this guy right here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that right there it tells you that's a repeat offender.
Mm-hmm.
That guy is addicted to that shit. That's what he needs.
So after leaving the Marines, Gary married a woman named Tanya Ann Tatum, and not shockingly, their relationship didn't last long. They divorced after spending barely 3 years together. Then in 1974, he married a 17-year-old girl named Leona Coates, with whom he ultimately had 3 children, but this relationship was also doomed from the start. Leona later reported that Gary was mentally and physically abusive. He would often get drunk and beat her, and on at least one occasion, he threatened her with a gun.
Damn. Dude, he just wants like a violent relationship at this point. I think he's trying to do the normal thing. He's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to be the husband, and he's just not cut out for it.
Well, he would later blame a lot of his actions on alcohol. And even here, she admitted that when he would drink, that's when some people just should never drink. Some people should never pick up a beer or bottle.
True. Like, I agree with that.
Yeah.
He had an alcoholic father as well. So, genetics would say that it's going to affect you the same way. If you had an alcoholic, abusive father, I mean, the chances are it's going to affect you the same way if you take after him.
As I take a swig of a Corona, like I know myself on alcohol is that I'm I get more friendly when I drink. And that's most people, it brings out, I guess maybe in a way it brings out your true self and your true feelings. Like, people get what they call liquid courage or whatever, but like you're able to, a lot of people that are kind of reserved are able to open up to people and tell you what they're really thinking when they drink. Or if you've got these demons you're hiding, alcohol can let you exercise them. And that's what he says in this.
Yeah. I could see that. I think it just allows these little blocks that you've put up in your mind and in these little social instances that you've made for yourself, it just drops them all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like in certain social things, like, in this group, I wouldn't say this typically, but hey, right now, I don't give a fuck. You just feel, like you say, you just feel more confident. It's the liquid courage.
So with his second wife, Leona, he tried numerous times to force her into a threesome with him and another woman and became furious when she refused. Bro, you got married. Okay? Like, listen to the vows of marriage. Like, together, you and her, like,
right.
Until if death do us part.
Vows, right?
There's no threesome in that. Like, it's just not how it goes. Like,
I mean, there's plenty of people who have open marriages,
Yeah, but it's
and whatnot. But that's usually discussed before the marriage.
Well, also consensually, like when she says no multiple times and you're still trying to force, come on, like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
That's not cool.
And when you get married, you should just assume that's probably never going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. Maybe when you've been together 30 years and you're like, whatever, you're old and bored, and you both want to do it.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure that happens for more couples than you think. I think more couples experiment in that than you think.
Hey. Or if it works for you, but it's got to be both people really want to do it. It can't be like one is dragging the other along. That's never going to work out. If one's dragging the other one into it, and the other one, like the one that doesn't want to do it's just doing it because they don't want to get divorced and they're just kind of like trying to go with it. And maybe I'll like it. They're not gonna.
Yeah. It's gonna be. Yeah, you both have to be all in for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's gonna be a tough pill to swallow. Watching your mate doing that with someone else.
No doubt. So. Regardless of how prepared you are.
Yep. So becoming bored with his second wife, Coates, Gary would turn his predatory eye to other women unfortunate enough to cross his path. In 1979, in Baca County, Colorado, he lured a young convenience store clerk outside, claiming he needed help with the ice machine. When the clerk came to help, he held her at knife point and dragged her into an alley where he attempted to rape her. After a violent struggle, the clerk managed to escape and call the police. Good for her for fighting and getting away from him.
Right on.
Because who knows what would have happened. I mean, we see that he's capable of murder later on. and he's got her secluded in a dark area. He
Just
very well
another
could have just
example.
ended it.
Just
Yeah,
another
I mean,
example of fighting instead of begging.
we did a whole episode called "Run,
Yeah.
Fight, Hide" or whatever it was titled, "Tools to
Yeah.
Escape a Serial Killer or a Killer." That was
Yep.
the biggest takeaway from that whole thing was like fight. Don't let them take you to a secluded area. Make
Right.
a
Don't give
scene.
up.
They don't want you to go. They want you to go quietly. They don't want you to fight back.
Exactly.
Like most predators, they don't want a fight. They just want an easy kill.
Exactly. Most criminals, they want an easy score, period, whatever they're going
Mhm.
for.
So for this crime, Gary would be caught, but served less than a year in prison for attempting to rape a woman at knife point. And of course, after his release, he went right back at it. Just months after getting out of prison for that one, he set his sights on a 15-year-old who was the daughter of one of his wife's friends. One night, he cornered her and raped her while holding a knife to her throat. Shocker. He did exactly what he would just got out of jail for.
Yeah. See, that should be it. I agree with that. I think it should be life sentence. Like a sexual, especially a violent sexual assault. You know what I'm saying? Twice in a row. Yeah, man, you got to go away.
Amazingly, his second wife, Leona Coates, was still with him at this point, and this was the final straw for her. After this second rape at knife point, the first one getting a year in prison for, this is when she finally had enough. And in 1982, she would divorce Gary Davis and win custody of their 3 children. Thank God. Gary would later be convicted of rape and sentenced to 8 years in prison for this one, of which he only served 4 years. So attempting to rape a woman at knife point, then raping a 15-year-old girl at knife point, and he serves a total of 5 years for these.
Not even, right?
You got 1 year before, right? And then 4 for this one.
Oh, yeah.
So 5 years for these two.
5 years. And I mean, that's really that's no light sentence, man. 5 years of your life, that's quite a bit. And yet
look what he did to these women, though, or these girls, I should say.
No,
one of them
I'm not saying.
That's a lifetime of hell that she now has to deal with, having that happen to her. So
no.
I know what you're saying, but
no, I'm not saying it's enough of a punishment. I'm saying that 5 years in prison and you still weren't able to correct yourself in any way. You're still not able to deal with these feelings, these emotions. You're still not able to rehabilitate yourself in some way. Then yeah, man, that's it. 5 years is a long time. You should have been able to do something with that. You know what I'm saying? That's
I think
a long
he was just
time
biding
to
his time to get out and be a predator again. I think that was what he was. That's all he wanted to do. And he was doing prison the right way to get out early. He was described as a model inmate by correctional staff. He successfully went through alcoholism treatment program and earned special privileges. He also spent a lot of time writing and putting personal ads in newspapers.
So unbelievable. He's just a piece of shit. He was improving himself, but he's just a piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. He did everything you said he could have been doing, but he still was just biding time to get out and rape some more women.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. I'd like you, literally, if you're not watching the YouTube video, Michael's just throwing his arms up in the air. Like, cause that's exactly, you could kind of tell in the audio. You're just like, I'm at a loss for words. I don't know. He's working on his alcohol problem and everything else, but still gets out, starts drinking again, and then going right back to what he does.
You know damn well what that shit's going to do to you.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So
unbelievable.
We mentioned he was spending time in prison writing and putting personal ads in newspapers. Should you be able to put personal ads in the newspaper if you're in fucking prison? I don't think you should.
Why not?
I'm sorry. Like, what do you like? What good is that going to do?
I don't know. But, the newspapers need funding too, man. They'll sell a slot to anybody. Prisoners' money is just
I guess they're not really like looking into where you're at or what you're doing all that much. You're just like, you got the money to pay for the ad. All right, cool. What is it?
Yeah, you just call in and tell them what you want, and there you go.
Yeah. So while doing these ads, he would make an unfortunate connection for society. Soon he began corresponding with a woman who responded to his classified ads in the newspaper, a woman named Rebecca Fincham. And this is, as we mentioned, a truly unfortunate twist of fate that these two found each other, because she was also a monster. Fincham was an overweight, recently divorced mother of 2 daughters who had left her alcoholic husband after she began an affair with another woman. Like Gary Davis,
he began an affair with another woman.
After he began having an affair with another woman. Well, I wouldn't put it past her to have an affair with a woman too.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It was.
But she was much like Gary Davis in that she also had a criminal record, having served 3 years of probation for a child exploitation charge. And due to this conviction, she was ordered to send her children out of state to live with their parents, and grew increasingly lonely. I guess you'd have to be pretty damn lonely to be responding to classified ads for dudes in prison. That's a pretty lonely move.
I didn't even think about that. That is lonely.
That's a lonely move, man.
Damn.
That's a desperate
That's
move.
like the back pages of eHarmony right there, bro. That's like way
that's a Hail Mary.
earliest post. You filter earliest post first. It's all the prison ones.
So Davis and Fincham exchanged explicit letters for months discussing their most graphic sexual desires. Davis found in Fincham the perfect woman, a woman who shared his disturbing fantasies and showed him the undying attention and loyalty that he craved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all he needed was some kerosene to that fire, man.
Yeah,
perfect.
So in 1984, after while he was still in prison, they married, with a priest performing the ceremony over the prison phone. The following year, Davis was released from prison, and he and Fincham moved to an apartment in Aurora, Colorado, where they found work renting out rooms to new residents. However, they weren't the typical couple that's just going to work a 9 to 5 here at this point in their lives. They know what they want to do.
Oh yeah.
And they needed some more space to do it. So after Davis was accused of scamming his tenants, the pair moved again, this time to Byers, Colorado, that small town where our victim is living on a farm, and they move to a farm.
You know what?
And
I can't understand about this story, Lauren? Where did all the money come from to do all this? It's like they bought an apartment and was renting out rooms of the apartment building, right? And I guess they sold that, and then they just pick up and buy this whole property in Byers, Colorado. This guy just got out of prison. She's got a record.
My best guess is that Fincham,
what the hell?
Maybe her ex-husband cheating on her. Maybe she got some nice,
maybe
settlement out of that
alimony or something.
Divorce, yeah.
Or maybe she was able to get a good job again. But I mean, God, with child charges, it's tough to get a job doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt.
That's just that just occurred to me. I'm like, where the hell did they get all this fucking money?
Right.
Oh man.
Yeah. So they moved to Byers, Colorado, and in Byers, Gary would find work as a farmhand on a ranch next door to the May family.
Okay.
And that's where he would get his eyes on the victim in this case.
Yeah. Could have been anybody, honestly. I mean, this guy, if he spends
that's
time
the scary
around
part
any
about
women, yeah, it is.
Any young, attractive woman.
Mm-hmm.
So since their marriage 2 years earlier, the sex life between Gary Davis and Rebecca Fincham had slowed down and grown old for Gary. They'd even tried making videotapes to spice things up, but when that didn't work, they began cruising around the countryside looking for a pretty girl. Oh God. It's so much scarier when a couple works together like this. We've done some of these cases.
Anytime two people do.
It just brings their success rate way up because a woman's guard's down when a woman approaches them.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
You're not expecting that. You see a couple pull up and the woman approaches you about something, like you're not expecting to get snatched up in that scenario.
No, it's so much easier to conduct this ruse with a woman as your front person. Mm-hmm. You're right.
Gary was once again setting his sights on new targets. While he was working on the ranch in Byers, other women had the misfortune of catching his eye. Several women later reported that Gary Davis had tried to lure them into his car to no avail. But there was one woman in particular that Gary had become so obsessed with that he had planned to get her whether or not she was consenting. And that was Virginia May. Ginny May, who we talked about earlier and went over her upbringing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Gary had first met Ginny at church and had become obsessed with her as soon as he laid his eyes on her. When he would work on the fence next to the Mclennan ranch, Davis would often make obscene comments toward Ginny about how he wanted to have sex with her and her sister-in-law. Oof, this is one of those things, bro. Like, if I'm Ginny's husband and she tells me this guy is getting a very serious fucking warning. Like, bro, do not look at my fucking wife. Do not talk to her.
Yeah,
or it's going to get ugly. And we have, access to farm equipment, and there's a lot of land out here, and you might end up in a hole.
There's a lot of land out here. Exactly. You're going to disappear, bitch. On
one occasion, Gary even urinated towards their ranch while crowing, "Come on, Virginia, baby. Come on. I'm here. Come to me." So this is what I'm saying. Okay. At this point, if she didn't relay this information to her husband, who was also named Gary, the good Gary.
Right.
But this something needs to be done already. This has gone way too far. Like, that's not fucking okay.
No, absolutely not. I'm imagining that good Gary is probably supporting his family. So he probably has a job during this type of thing. Whereas bad Gary is the farmhand. So he's around the ranch all day. You know what I'm saying? Doing whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah.
So
This ranch that Ginny lived on with her husband was massive, apparently, because when she was abducted, we later find out that Gary was on the other side of the ranch. He was there, but like it's some seminar or something on the other side. This thing was just massive, apparently.
oh, okay. Wow.
So Ginny, during these moments, these weird moments with this guy on the next ranch over, mostly ignored his public displays of lewdness, which didn't deter him. He did later admit that he liked when he got more of a rise out of them. So I'm sure he was hoping for a reaction from her if she wasn't giving it to him.
Yep.
But nonetheless, he would concoct an elaborate plan with his wife to kidnap Ginny May from her home, take her to an isolated area, and have a quote unquote threesome with the young woman. Threesome is not the right word. That's
no
threesome is for 3 consenting adults. That's not the right word. This is a fucking abduction and rape.
Yes. This is abduction and team rape right here.
Unfortunately, his newlywed wife Rebecca was a monster as well, so she went along with this plan, and they would attempt the first time to enact this plan on the late afternoon of July 21st, 1986. Ginny May's sister-in-law, Sue Mclennan, received a strange phone call. It was from Davis's wife, Rebecca Fincham. She says, quote, "Is your husband home?" Fincham asked. "No, he's out," Sue responded, perplexed. "Oh, that's okay," Fincham continued. "I just have some clothes to drop off. Thought your kids might want them." So this is their plan.
What does that have to do with her husband being home? It's such a weird conversation.
I know, right? If you're the one on the other end of the phone call, you're like, "Why are you asking if my husband? What is that?" Yeah, you could drop off the clothes whether he's home or not. Why do you need to ask that?
Exactly. That's a red flag. Of course,
they wanted to know that. They want to make sure that the husband's not around when they do this.
Right.
So a few minutes later, a car drove up to Sue's home on the Mclennan Ranch, and it was Fincham and Davis. Fincham got out and began walking to Sue's driveway, leaving her husband in the car. But she wasn't carrying clothes, and she said that she wanted to bring over. And upon seeing a male ranch hand standing nearby, Rebecca began to panic. Quote, "I thought your husband wasn't home." She stayed only long enough to have some iced tea. Then she and Davis quickly drove away, leaving Sue Mclennan bewildered and confused.
Thank God for that ranch hand, dude.
But it would have ended up being Sue's sister-in-law that would have ended up being the victim here. They would have just abducted her, I'm guessing. Because I don't know where Ginny was at this time for this first attempt. I'm guessing what happened in this scenario was they heard a woman answer, assumed it was Ginny, but it was actually Sue, and tried to enact their plan. But when they got there, between the male ranch hand standing nearby, but also realizing it wasn't Ginny, it was Sue, and that wasn't their intended target, they called off this initial attack.
But Ginny and Sue live in 2 different homes. They would know that, right?
But maybe on the same ranch. I don't know.
Okay, maybe they got them confused. They were new there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Sue Mclennan, nonetheless, didn't know it, but she had just had an extremely close brush with death. The only things they had brought with them were a rope and a .22 caliber rifle. No clothes for donating. Davis and Fincham had intended to kidnap Sue and rape her, and the presence of the male ranch hand was the only thing that saved her life. They intended to abduct and rape somebody, whether it was Sue or Ginny.
Yeah,
I suppose.
Maybe he was kind of hesitant to tell Rebecca about his fascination with Ginny because he didn't want her getting too jealous. So he kind of made it out like, yeah, we can just take anybody.
Yeah.
And maybe, Sue's husband, we know Sue's husband probably isn't home, so we'll try her house first.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, man? I don't know. I think they didn't really give a shit. They just wanted to inflict pain on people. They were just sadists.
Yeah.
Honestly. But
yeah. So on that same day, later that day at about 6:30 p.m. on July 21st, 1986, they made another phone call at 6 p.m. And this time they got a hold of Ginny. She received the phone call, and like they'd done with Sue, they asked if Ginny's husband was at home. Ginny unfortunately said that he was not, and they said that they had some used clothing they wanted to give to Ginny for her 2 children, and they told her that they would be stopping by to drop them off. And at about 6:30 that evening, Gary and Rebecca drove up to the May family home on the Mclennan Ranch. Outside, Ginny May was playing with her 4-year-old daughter, Krista, and 7-year-old son, Brandon. Upon seeing Davis and Fincham pull up to the driveway, she walked over to greet them. At this point, Rebecca asked Ginny May if she could borrow some wire stretchers from a tool shed on the property. I had to look up what this is. It was pretty obvious once I saw it. I was like, wire stretcher, but yeah, it's for like doing fencing, right?
Yeah, it almost sounds like one of those things, those made up tools that contractors tell newbies, like, "Hey man, go get the wire stretcher." Yeah, we don't have enough wire.
Yeah, but this is their way of isolating Ginny from her kids, apparently. So when Ginny went to the tool shed with Fincham and Davis following closely behind, the kids were still watching, of course. I mean, kids are curious. These people show up and they're, you know, walking away with mommy. My kids would be following as well, for sure.
Right.
They witnessed as Gary punched Ginny in the face, knocking her to the ground. Rebecca noticed that a 4-year-old, Krista, was watching and told her to get inside while Gary dragged Ginny May to his car. They then forced Ginny into the back seat where he tied her up and they drove away in a hurry. And it wouldn't be until an hour and a half later at 8 p.m. when Gary May, the good Gary, returned to his home from a marketing strategy meeting on the other end of the ranch. He expected to soon have dinner with Ginny and her children, but he found that all that was in the home was their 2 children, and they were terrified. And actually, the daughter was hiding when he got home. And when he asked her what happened, 4-year-old Krista, who was clearly scared and hiding in the home, said, when he said, "Where's mommy?" she said, "She's not here. Becky took her." At this point, Gary ran outside to his radio in his truck, sounding the alarm to Ginny's father, Rod, and others. And they would spend some time searching the entire ranch, but found no trace of Ginny. Then at about 9 p.m., an hour later, Gary May called police and told them that his wife was missing, and it would take 2 hours for a deputy to show up to the ranch. And once he arrived, it wasn't much help. Gary would later recall, this is enraging, he would later recall that the deputy seemed unconcerned with Ginny's safety. Quote, "This happens all the time," the deputy told Gary May. "These housewives get bored with their lives and take off with another guy. Are you fucking kidding me?"
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a bold claim.
What's amazing is that like we heard about how this small town, everybody knows Ginny May, right? Like,
right.
She grew up here and she's not this type of person that would just run and leave her kids on a whim like this.
Right.
It makes no sense.
But maybe, yeah. Well, maybe the sheriff doesn't know her that well. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it was a deputy. It was a deputy.
Oh,
Maybe he was new.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But of course, Gary May was furious. He demanded for the deputy to listen to him and to begin a search. Begrudgingly, the officer decided to talk to Ginny's children. Brandon May told police that his mother had been, quote, "taken away by a man and woman driving an older model Buick." His description of the couple seemed to match that of Gary Davis and Rebecca Fincham, further corroborating Krista May's account. Due to the circumstantial evidence implicating Davis, police drove to his house on the neighboring ranch. Nobody was home, so officers began a routine patrol of the surrounding area. One officer noticed car lights in the distance, so he drove to investigate, at which point the deputy caught up with the car and turned his police lights, signaling the car to pull over. The occupants of this car were, of course, Gary Davis and Rebecca Fincham.
Right.
And the officer would ask, "What are you folks doing out here?" They said, "Oh, we were just going fishing." "Is everything all right?" he would say. "Ginny May just went missing from the ranch down the road," the deputy continued, aware that one of the May children had implicated the couple in Ginny's disappearance. "I don't suppose you know where she is." Fincham adamantly denied knowing anything about Ginny May's disappearance. "Oh, no, I haven't seen her in a while," she replied. "I hope they find her soon." This deputy was understandably suspicious. It was far too late at night to go fishing, and there was not any lakes or bodies of water near where they were driving around at. So
yeah, kind of crucial.
They're nearby. They're implicated in this murder. They're new to this town. This guy has a reputation already for maybe being violent towards women and whatnot. And these kids are saying, "These people took my mom," and now they're out driving around. Like,
why would 2 kids make that up on a whim, man?
Yeah.
That don't even make no sense. And then the boy was like 9.
Yeah. I think he was
you
7.
Think a 9-year-old? Oh, he was 7? Okay, so they were 7 and 4?
Still 7. I mean, my son is
7.
5, and he would give you a hell of a detailed description if someone dragged his mom away, I promise you.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, at 7, they're both. 7 and 4, they're both giving a good description at that age.
Unfortunately, the officer didn't have enough to detain the couple. All he had was, speculation and whatnot. And the accusations of a young child weren't enough to make an arrest. So he had no choice but to let them go. However, the following morning, Rod Mclennan, Ginny's father, decided to go over to the Davis home and talk to the couple personally. When he got there, he confronted Rebecca Fincham and Davis about Krista's accusations and demanded an explanation. Gary Davis didn't say much, leaving most of the talking to his wife. Rebecca told Rod the same story she had told the deputy, that she and Davis had gone fishing that night and hadn't seen anything unusual. Fincham stood in the yard of her home, crying and smoking a cigarette, as she even expressed hope that Ginny would soon be found. Wow. To me, like,
trying to get that
everything.
Oscar.
That says everything. Like,
how
if you don't know this
man.
woman, you just moved to this town, you would not be crying if she disappeared. Like, you're showing your guilt on that.
Yeah. That's twisted, man. That is really twisted.
She said, quote, "We want to do everything we can to help find your daughter. I know how you feel. I was once raped." First of all, who said anything about rape?
That's one of those weird moments. I was about to say.
That's one of those weird moments where you're like, wait, she's just missing for a day now. Who said anything about rape?
Right. I guess she's trying to say, like, I was taken against my will and attacked. I was kidnapped or whatever.
But you're jumping to conclusions there if you truly don't know what's going on.
Yeah, seriously.
So Rod Mclennan at one point made eye contact with Gary Davis. He said, quote, "Gary, I swear if you have done anything to my daughter, I will fucking kill you." Davis silently sneered at Mclennan and walked away. After the visit, Rod felt like he knew the truth, like he'd seen everything he needed to see, and he knew that they did something to his daughter.
Yeah.
Just a few hours later, officers would arrive at the Davis home, and Rebecca Fincham and Gary Davis were arrested on suspicion of kidnapping Ginny May. And upon searching the couple's residence, police found numerous disturbing items, such as sex toys, porno magazines, lewd letters, and even some pictures of nude children. That's enough right there to lock them up, right? I mean, child porn.
Yeah, definitely the pictures of nude children. The rest of the stuff is
not the dildos
technically
and porn.
Legal. There's nothing wrong with the other three things.
As I say, disturbing items, sex toys, and pornography. Yeah, I mean, they're going to find that in most homes.
Yeah, that's not that bad. But then the pictures of nude children, that's what we need to focus on. That is the worst. Yeah, that should be enough right there to at least detain them, right?
Yeah. So at the sheriff's office, Gary Davis had a brief chat with his wife. Quote, "We're done for. The ball game's over, babe." Do people not realize that when you're in police custody or in an interrogation room, a cell, whatever, you have
complete privacy.
Like,
oh wait,
the phone calls you have with people also being recorded. Like,
yeah,
you don't got any fucking privacy. Maybe when you're talking to your attorney, that's the only time.
Yeah,
that you might be able to speak in confidence. That's about it. But yeah, you're having a phone call with your girlfriend or the person that's also implicated in the crime. They're definitely listening to what you're saying.
Oh, without a doubt. And they have every right to. You're in their custody.
Rebecca, however, believed that she and Davis could still talk their way out of this. She said, quote, "Don't tell them shit. We'll get a lawyer." The following day, however, on July 23rd, 1986, Gary met up with his public defender and decided to come clean. He told his attorney that he was willing to make a deal. If the prosecution allowed him to plead guilty and promised not to seek the death penalty against him, he would lead police to Virginia May. I'm smiling because I know how this whole thing turns out.
I know, right?
He made a deal, but he missed a detail in the writing there.
He didn't read that fine print.
Yeah, so trying to avoid the death penalty, he came clean and brought them to Ginny May's body. The district attorney would agree to the deal, and Davis pointed on a map where he and Fincham left the victim. At the location in the middle of a wheat field, police found the nude, bullet-riddled body of a 33-year-old Virginia May. And nobody knows exactly what happened between Gary Davis, Rebecca Fincham, and Ginny May after the kidnapping, but he did, later confess to most of the details, so we know mostly what happened.
Yeah.
Davis and Fincham each blamed each other for what happened. According to a confession Davis later made to police, he said he climbed into the backseat of the car while Fincham drove into the Colorado desert. There, he forced Ginny May to remove all of her clothing and sexually assaulted her while holding her down. Eventually, Rebecca stopped the car in an isolated area in the desert neighboring Adams County. There, Davis looped a rope around Ginny's neck and led her from the car, using the rope as a leash. He then forced her to lie down and raped her at knife point, as he tended to do. That was kind of his MO. When he was finished, Fincham wanted to turn. This is a tough one here.
Yeah.
He then forced Ginny to perform oral sex on his wife, threatening to kill her if she didn't comply. It's fucking sick, man. So after this,
how do you make that up? I tend to believe this whole confession, because just why would you make this up?
Yeah,
it's crazy that this was his confession, right? And then in court, he tries to blame Fincham, which she's just as guilty. But I mean, you can't put it all on her, obviously. After this confession, Jesus.
So after this was done, Ginny supposedly begged for her life, promising him that she wouldn't tell anyone. Davis instead bludgeoned Ginny across the head with the stock of his 22 caliber rifle, shattering her skull and causing internal hemorrhaging. The blow stunned Ginny but didn't kill her or even knock her unconscious. As she lied on the ground, moaning in agony, Davis grabbed the rope, tied it around Ginny's neck, and both he and Fincham began pulling on it as hard as they could, attempting to strangle her. But even this failed to kill Ginny. She continued to plead for mercy and offered the couple $1,000 if they let her go. Davis wasn't moved. He laughed at her, said, "It's too late for that," grabbed his 22 caliber rifle and stood over her, firing 9 22 caliber hollow point bullets into Ginny's head and one in her neck. Rebecca allegedly then asked if Gary thought she was dead. He told her he'd make sure he was, and reloaded his rifle and fired 4 more shots into Ginny's chest and pelvis.
Jesus.
So what, total of almost 15 shots, somewhere around there?
Yeah.
For a few minutes, they stood around the body of the victim, drinking beer before they covered Ginny's body with a bale of hay, got inside their car, and drove back home. I mean,
dude,
I guess you're either for the death penalty or not. But like, if you're for it, this is
a case.
This is a candidate here. I mean, this woman was beloved by everyone and was on her own farm and was taken away in front of her children and had this happen to her. Begged
if
for
this
her
happens
life.
in like Florida or Texas, they're done.
Yeah,
they're done. Both of them are getting death penalty.
Yeah. So on July 24th, 1986, Gary Lee Davis and Rebecca Fincham were both charged with kidnapping, rape, conspiracy, first-degree murder, and felony murder for the killing of Virginia May. Despite Davis's earlier confession, both he and Fincham pleaded not guilty to all the charges. They were ordered to be held without bail pending trial. And of course, this crime had utterly devastated the little town of Byers.
Yep.
During his eulogy, the pastor of the congregation, Reverend Andrew Gottschalk, could not hold back his rage and fury. I love this, man. This pastor, they're supposed to keep it together, but this is how sick this case was. He lost it during the eulogy. He says, quote, "If true justice could be served, these scum would be forced to spend the rest of their lives in a pit filled with rats, snakes, rodents, and skunks. Throughout this time, I've had conflicts with reason and emotion, love and frontier justice, and the gallows in my Christian faith. My anger and my sorrows have won out." That's how worked up they got this pastor.
Yeah, they got him worked up into some Old Testament shit, filled with rats, snakes, rodents, and skunks. God damn. Cover his body with boils too. Give him leprosy. Shit.
Right.
Let's just throw the book at him.
Burn him at the stake.
Right.
So let's get to the trial. Gary Davis and Rebecca Fincham were each tried separately for their murder of Virginia May, and both pleaded not guilty to all charges. That's amazing. He confesses, right? He makes a deal with the DA, and then he says, and then he goes with not guilty. And their reasoning was they would blame each other for firing the fatal shots. To me, like, you're still guilty of murder, even if you didn't pull the trigger necessarily. When you're there, you abducted her, you raped her, you're admitting to all that, and you were there when she was killed. It really is kind of irrelevant at this point who actually pulled the trigger, in my opinion.
I agree. You're both guilty of this murder. First degree.
Yeah. And you also both admit that you put the rope around her neck and both pulled on it simultaneously together. Like you were both trying to kill her and she was too tough to kill with the rope.
Yeah, exactly.
This part is fucking amazing though. So although Davis's earlier plea deal had been intended to save him from execution, he had made a critical mistake. When he had arranged his earlier deal with the district attorney, he had hinted that Ginny May was still alive. By not revealing that Ginny was in fact dead, Davis had broken the terms of his agreement. Therefore, he was still eligible for the death penalty.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you can't say where someone's body is if you don't even say that they're dead.
Right.
You're just guessing.
So in February of 1987, after finding that Davis had known that Ginny May was dead at the time of his made agreement, a judge ruled that the plea deal was invalid and allowed the prosecution to seek the death sentence. You knew once they allowed it, like they figured that out. Like there's no way he wasn't going to get it, because they're like, "Ha, we can give it to you. We can give it to you now."
That lawyer knew that from the start, probably. They're like, "We got him. How? I'll explain later."
Yeah. Yeah. So they would, unfortunately, though, decide not to go with the death penalty option against Rebecca Fincham. It was a decision that they would later come to regret. Fincham was the first to go on trial in May of 1987, testifying on her own behalf. She maintained her innocence, and although she admitted she was present during the murder, she claimed that she only participated because she was afraid of Gary Davis. Oh, that old shtick. I was only doing it because I was afraid of him. Sure.
Right. That's the advantage that the woman has in these types of trials. You know, when it's a man and woman duo.
Yeah.
And it, you know, that's a typical defense lawyer tactic too. You know, the defense lawyer's pushing that too. Let's just say that you were being taken advantage of, that you're a victim in this too. You know, were you doing this before you met Gary? No, you weren't. See, I could do
That's exactly what they did. They try to paint her as an abused housewife who was manipulated by her husband into becoming his accomplice in this crime. They claimed that she had tried to stand up for Ginny Mae when Davis was going to kill her. She had screamed at him for him to stop and had pleaded with Davis to let Ginny go free. Okay.
Wow, sure.
Thankfully, the jury didn't buy it, and on June 20th, 1987, they convicted Rebecca Fincham of the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Ginny Mae, and her sentencing would be set for August of 1987, and she faced a maximum sentence of life in prison. But while she awaited sentencing, Gary Davis's trial began, with the prosecution in this one seeking the death penalty. And at this time, Colorado had not carried out an execution since 1967. So it had been like 30 years.
Seriously.
30 years since they had gotten one, or since they had carried one out at least. But the prosecutor was determined to see that Davis died in a gas chamber for his crime. Gary's defense attorney tried to shift most of the blame to Rebecca. The murder of Ginny Mae, he claimed, was Rebecca's idea. If Fincham's part of the crime wasn't worthy of a death sentence, then Davis's life should also be spared. Truman, the defense attorney, even called forth a psychologist who testified that the gunshot wounds to Ginny Mae's breast and torso were indicative of being inflicted by an enraged woman seeking to disfigure her rival. An obvious attempt to pin the killing on Fincham. But what about the 9 shots to the skull, though, Guy? What about that?
Yeah, what about those? Because those were first.
Yeah.
And most likely the fatal ones, especially with a .22 caliber, a close range.
The argument could be made still that maybe she did fire those, but the 9 shots. So you could have seen a scenario where he shoots her in the head 9 times, and then she asks, "Is she dead?" And he hands her the gun, and she puts those in her to kind of, if I'm him, in that scenario, you can see a motive there to like implicate her to the extent that she also shot. You know, they're in it together. You know, we've seen that before.
Right.
You're shooting her too because we did this together.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think there's some, you know, that's not the most outlandish theory that a woman might have shot her in the breast and torso or whatever. But the prosecution would counter by playing a tape recorded confession to the jury in which Davis described the murder of Ginny Mae in gruesome detail. The prosecutor said that only the killer would know. Let's get into some quotes from Gary's confession. Quote, "We drove over to what's known as Ewing Place, at which time I got Ginny out of the car. I had a small rope and tied it around her neck loosely." He then described how Ginny Mae had pleaded for her life and how he had shot her. Quote, "I couldn't leave because she would have went right home and everything. I went back 15 feet away from the body, pointed the gun at her and turned my head and just pulled the trigger." So with these quotes from his confession, the verdict came down after only 3 hours of deliberation. On July 21st, 1987, 1 year to the day after the murder of Ginny Mae, the jury found Gary Lee Davis guilty of rape, murder, and kidnapping. The following day, on July 22nd, he appeared in court again for his sentencing hearing. This time, he pleaded with the jury to spare his life. Quote, "Perhaps death will be the quickest and easy way out for me," he told the jury, "but I think my life might still have purpose. If I do get life, maybe I could help somebody else. I could talk them out of the crime and keep them from going back to the penitentiary."
But you can't keep yourself from going back to the penitentiary.
Right.
Come on, Gary.
You've had time in prison to contemplate life and your actions and gotten out and done even worse shit after that.
Right.
Time and
time
again.
Who are you going to help, Gary? Who are you going to help? I love how he tried to humanize himself when he testified in court with his confession by saying that he turned his head and pulled the trigger. Man, come on, Gary. You just raped a woman at knife point, kidnapped her from her own home in front of her children, and you're trying to like give yourself some kind of humanity.
You expect me to believe that from 15 feet away with your head turned away, you hit her all 9 times in the head.
Okay. Thank you. That as well. Yeah. That is also another great point.
Pretty incredible there, John Wick.
Come on. Yeah.
He also says to the jury, quote, "I know what I have done is hard for anyone to forgive and probably never will. It was sick. it was a sick, stupid crime. The words "I'm sorry" seem very small, but I'm saying I'm sorry to the family and many friends of Ginny May.
Yeah, that's worthless apology.
The jury was not moved by Davis's apology. After deliberating for 3 hours, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict for death penalty. In accordance with the jury's recommendation, Judge Harlan Bachman sentenced Gary Lee Davis to death in the gas chamber for the murder of Virginia May and imposed 4 life sentences on the charges of conspiracy, kidnapping, and rape. The following month, on August 13th, 1987, Rebecca Fincham appeared before her judge to be sentenced for her role in the murder. For her crime, she was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 48 years, plus an additional 54 years for the kidnapping and rape charges. But before she could become eligible for parole in 2008, she died in prison from a heart attack at the age of 57.
Wow. Well, good.
Not the healthiest person. She was pretty overweight.
Oh, okay. Well, good riddance.
For 10 years, Gary Lee Davis remained on death row at Colorado State Penitentiary in Cannon City, Colorado. While in prison, he claimed to be a born-again Christian and began to reunite with estranged members of his family. Mm-hmm. And in 1990, the Supreme Court denied his petition for a new trial and set his execution date for January 5th, 1991. Claiming he would rather die than spend the rest of his life in prison, he decided to drop his pending federal appeals and not fight his execution. However, as we see, as that day approaches, and you see like it's actually happening, just one day before he was supposed to be strapped to the gurney in the penitentiary's death chamber, he changed his mind. He got cold feet, changed his mind, and decided to file his federal appeals, and his execution was yet again stayed. And actions like these would become a common occurrence with him, who would alternate between filing and dropping appeals throughout the 1990s, ultimately escaping 5 execution dates. In the end, after much prodding from anti-death penalty groups and members of his own family, Davis would choose to fight his execution. Ultimately, however, his efforts would get the death sentence commuted were all in vain. So he kept trying, but at a certain point, they decided, nope, you're getting it. And on June 25th,
they said it's been 30 years. We're gonna get somebody. I don't know why I'm making them like real.
They probably saw that it was gonna. They figured it was gonna come to an end soon. They got to get one last hurrah in there.
That's right. That's right.
And who better than this guy? On June 25th, 1997, nearly 10 years after his conviction, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear Gary Davis's appeal. Is one of many appeals. Finally, they'd had enough. And on October 1st, Gary Davis received his final execution date. He would die by lethal injection at 8 p.m. on October 14th, 1997. So I'm guessing at this point they'd moved away from the gas chamber thing, because that was what he was initially supposed to die, was gas chamber, right? And then they'd gone more to the lethal injection thing.
Yeah.
Supposedly more
over the course of the 10 years.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So he had some thoughts about Ted Bundy, a case that we spent about 3 hours on Patreon.
At least.
Talked very much about his days on death row and his days of execution and all of that.
Yes.
He had some words about this. Knowing he'd likely end up in a similar predicament, Gary Lee Davis paid attention when Ted Bundy was executed in Florida's electric chair in 1989. So this is back. He talked about it before he was even on death row. Just hours before his execution, Bundy granted his last interview, as we know, to psychologist and evangelist James Dobson, in which Bundy told Dobson that his murderous attacks on women could be traced back to his adolescent fascination with pornography. He tried to blame porn for what he had done.
Yeah. Okay.
Gary Davis thought Bundy was lying. No shit. He says, quote, "I can't see how looking at naked pictures would make somebody kill someone." He wrote to a friend in a letter a few weeks after Bundy's death. Quote, "That's a cop out. Anyone who believes that shit is pure stupid." Being said,
what is it then, Gary?
Yeah, Gary. That being said, excused many of his own actions. His favorite scapegoat for himself was his alcoholism. He said, quote, "Sober, I consider myself a real nice person, but drunk, a real live monster." And if you know that about yourself, homie, you know that when you drink, you're liable to go out and commit heinous acts against women. You're going to rape them, kill them.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do you pick up the alcohol then? If you're a real nice person and you know that about yourself, I would stay clear of every bar, every person that drinks around me, and never drink again.
Right. That's what a really nice person would do.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my opinion as well.
Not even a really nice person, just not a monster.
Like, just not a monster. Just an average person.
Monster.
Just an average person. You don't even have to be really nice. The consequences were that dire.
Yeah, I drink this, I do this thing, and then I may go out and rape and kill people. You don't have to be a real nice person to not do that.
That's true. You just got to be a person who doesn't want to go to prison and ruin their own life even.
Yeah.
You know, you just at bare minimum, you have to be that. He's not even that.
So continuing in this letter to his friend regarding Bundy's confession, he added, quote, "I've always had a strong driving force inside of me for some reason. Alcohol let me go for it." Mm-hmm. And in letters to his longtime confidant, he estimated, this is where we got that number of him raping 15 women in the 60s and 70s. And then his last hope for the governor of Colorado to commute his sentence, days before his scheduled execution, he made a televised apology to the May family and filed a petition for clemency to Colorado Governor Roy Romer, asking for mercy. But Romer refused to grant mercy to the convicted killer. Quote, "There has undoubtedly been some rehabilitation of his character and his demeanor," Governor wrote in his denial, "but I do not believe that whatever remorse or rehabilitation that is displayed here justifies reaching that extraordinary event that would cause the governor to grant him clemency." So on October 14th, 1997 at 12 p.m., Gary Davis was escorted from death row to a small holding cell just down the hallway from his execution chamber. His last meal would be chocolate and vanilla ice cream. Not quite a meal.
That's it? That's all he ate?
Just ice cream. And he actually shared the meal with the prison superintendent and corrections manager. Quote, "Food tastes better when it's shared," Davis joked. He later asked for a cigarette, but because smoking was banned in Colorado prisons, his request is denied.
Oh, he couldn't even get a cigarette. Damn.
When given the opportunity to make a last statement, he said nothing. And at 8:24 p.m., he was injected with the deadly cocktail. And by 8:33, the induced cardiac arrest killed him, and he was pronounced dead. Good riddance.
Yeah. Good riddance, old Gary. Bad Gary.
The Bad Gary.
And old Bad Becky, she got hers too a lot earlier. Right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, heart attack. Probably would have got her whether she was on the outside or inside, but still.
Yeah, at least she spent those years leading up to that heart attack in prison, I suppose.
That's right. That's right. Well, crazy case. Thanks again, Jana.
Thanks, Jana. And go Avalanche in this series. Tampa, you guys had your couple cups in the last few years. You can spare one to a team that hasn't gotten one in over 2 decades.
Exactly. Share the championships, Tampa.
Share
Bay.
the wealth a little bit. Come on.
Seriously, share the wealth like we do with all of our listeners. We
share the wealth in your armpits.
That's right. That's what we do. We share our Oh My Gaia, guys. Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. And at Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. And guys, like I've told you so many times before, there is definitely a scent and a vibe for you at Oh My Gaia. From vanilla to cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, bergamot, amber. And we have our own scent, True Crime Pine, made just for us here at True Crime Guys by Oh My Gaia. We can't express
you got to order that soon, right? Isn't that a limited thing? It's going bye-bye?
Is it? Is True Crime Pine going bye-bye?
I thought so. I thought that's what that recent post was all about. Like, get your True Crime Pine while you can, because I think it was going extinct.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was just on sale.
I could be wrong. Maybe it was just on sale. I hope not. I hope it's not going away. But if it is, get it while you can.
Yeah, seriously. Either way, it's on sale right now, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And you guys, but it's always on sale for True Crime Guys listeners, because you guys can use the word creeper for 15% off your order. That's CREEPER for 15% off at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram or ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com. Tell them True Crime Guys sent you. All right?
That's right. Also tell Tonic CBD that True Crime Guys sent you, and pick yourself up some of the highest quality CBD you can get. Not all CBD products are created equal. From how it's grown and processed to how it's formulated and delivered into your body, every step of the process that goes into making it ultimately affects your experience with it. Tonic has original formulas using CBD adaptogens, herbs, and superfoods, and has been working to deliver the most effective, intentional, and sustainable products since 2017. They cultivate their own hemp in their certified organic farm in upstate New York. That hemp travels only 30 minutes to their state-of-the-art manufacturing and distribution facility, where it's turned into a finished product and sent to you, ensuring only the highest quality vibes at every stage of the process. Tonic's farm-to-bottle CBD plus botanical blends are uniquely formulated to provide targeted support where you need it most. Each and every high-quality ingredient is thoughtfully selected for its ability to support and enhance the benefits of CBD, resulting in a more effective, well-rounded, and consistent wellness solution for your mind and body. They have different blends, CBD mixed with things like black seed oil, which is a super powerful antioxidant. It's great for your immune system. And they have different blends for your needs, so you can test each one out. There's also a microchip on the top of each product's tube packaging, which allows you to tap the phone on the top of the tube and reveal the third-party lab reports, product information, details about their farm, and even helpful blog posts to provide you with some more CBD education. So with values rooted in quality, integrity, and sustainability, Tonic is committed to creating plant-based wellness products that are good for the people and good for the planet. Visit tonicvibes.com to learn more and use code word CREEPER to save 20% on checkout. That's tonicvibes.com, code word CREEPER. Guys, Tonic should be a part of your, not just Tonic, but CBD should be a part of your daily routine. It's got so many benefits when you really look into it. It's kind of just amazing. So
it really is.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about it. There's no psychoactive thing to it. Some people are still a little bit scared because it's attached to marijuana plant and whatnot, but there's no THC in it. So
no THC, no psychoactive effects whatsoever, unfortunately.
Exactly. There's places for that as well.
That's right. Also, we should talk about Patreon, right?
Well, let's talk about the fact that this is on YouTube real quick. We always forget to mention that. Check out our YouTube page, subscribe to that. A lot of you have not gone and checked that out yet. You can watch our episodes as well as listen to them, and while you watch it, it's a different experience. There's pictures of the killers, pictures of the crime scenes a lot of times, and all the things that you're Googling while you're listening to a podcast, those are already there for you, popping up as you're watching it on YouTube.
Boom. So just like that.
Yeah, check that out. There's more to offer on the YouTube channel as well. We record a Full House Fantasy Football podcast on there. We've been doing some mock drafts lately. Those are on YouTube. You can watch us doing our drafts. Right. There's a lot to offer on there, so check that out. But then definitely Patreon, man.
Yeah, and then if you're on Patreon, you get a whole lot more of us in video form because we do Just the Banter every single week in video form as well. And me and Andy jump on every fourth Strange Shorts, and we do a video version of that. So there's a lot more to offer on Patreon. Patreon.com/truecrimeguys. For $2 a month, you will get access to all of the Patreon exclusives that we have released so far. I think there's 60-something of them. There's 5 years worth, give or take, one a month for 5 years or so. And
don't you want to announce that a lot of our old episodes are going away and they're going on Patreon?
That's what I'm going to say. And those are, that's what I was going to get to. Those are also going to be on that $2 tier where you can get the Patreon exclusives. So for $2 a month, you'll always be able to hear the entire True Crime Guys catalog. But what Lauren is alluding to is on the 1st of July, starting the 1st, one episode a day will be dropping from the free platform and going into the Patreon vault at True Crime Guys, patreon.com/True Crime Guys. On there, like I say, on the $2 tier. And you guys will still be able to hear all those.
For how many days will this happen? How many episodes are going on to the Patreon?
We're gonna archive the first 50.
Okay.
The first 50. So we still will have well over 150 episodes available on the free platform. And that's not counting all of the Freeloader series stuff is still going to be on the free platform. The Sandu Stories exclusives that we've released, Higher Thoughts, all that stuff, all the extra stuff will still stay on the free platform as little teasers and whatnot. So cool. We just wanted to make you guys aware. It just kind of cleans up the feed a little bit. Helps our RSS feed and whatnot, just helps clean things up. So as of the 1st of July, old episodes, starting with episode number 1, will be disappearing and going into the TCG vault on Patreon.
All right.
Yep. And then the $5 tier, you get everything. You get everything we ever make. That's it.
Really, it's almost too much content.
It's too much content.
Some people would disagree. Depends on how much you like us.
Right.
There's a lot.
Right.
You get a lot of shit.
I feel like we have listeners on both ends of the spectrum. We got some people that's like, I can't wait for the new release, and then there's people that's like, I'm never gonna get through all this. Like, it's cool to support the guys for a little while. I'm never gonna get through all this.
But it's nice to know that if something happened, maybe you're laid up with an injury or surgery or something, and it's like you got endless content there available at your fingertips with the $5 tier.
That's right.
So
yeah, there's Just the Banter we do every week, Strange Shorts every week, access to the TCG Patreon exclusive.
We've
Lauren's
done 82
5-minute
Just
murder
the
show.
Banters. 82
82
just the banters.
just the banters. Wow.
You get all of those, and you get all the
You
Patreon exclusive, all the big hitter serial killers that you're like, have they done that guy? Most likely we have on Patreon, and most likely it was a 2-3 hour episode. We've released a handful of them on the main feed, so you can get a taste of what those are like.
Yeah.
But there's so much more on Patreon.
No doubt. Also, your 5-minute murder show also went with video. I forgot about that.
Yep.
So that's every Saturday. You get access to that as well. So it's a pile of shit over there on Patreon waiting for y'all. No doubt.
That's not the best sale of it. It's a pile of shit over there waiting for your $5.
It's a pile of shit. It's a lot of it. It's a lot of shit. It's a pile. TCG pile right there.
Pile of steaming shit waiting for you over there.
We just keep throwing stuff on there, and you sort through it. You know, there's some gold in there. You just sort.
There's
through
a giant stinking turd waiting for you over there. Patreon.com/truecrime.
That's right. Go get it.
All right, everybody.
Is there anything else?
That's it, man. Have a great week. We'll see you next week for another freebie.
Yep.
Keep creeping.
Keep creeping, guys.
Cheers.
You hush your mouth, boy.